What's going on, everybody? You already know what time it is. It's Monday and coming at you. Well, you won't get it live, but we're coming live. It's Steve and
John.
it's always like that dramatic pause. And if y'all saw this motherfucker's face when I look back at the camera at him right now with the big eyes, what the fuck? Anywho, I hope you guys all had a great week, good weekend. Sunday was chilly as shit here. It wasn't too hot. So I just kind of stayed inside and chilled with little man. How was your week, man?
It wasn't bad. It was pretty good. Didn't really do much. I went shooting this weekend. Tested out a new red dot on a pistol that I got. That's about it. It was 20 degrees when I went shooting. So my plan was to shoot 200 rounds. I think I made it through about 150 before my hands were like, no, we're not doing this no more.
Understandable. All right. So this week we are doing Wild West Legends. I'm gonna let John go first since he has the hero of the story. My guy's more of a villain, so I guess that's the route we're taking. John gets the heroes, I'll run the villains.
Is that how you really wanted to do things?
I don't know. You had Doc Holliday. He was considered, I guess you could a quasi-villain, quasi-hero. I don't know. He's part hero, part villain.
All right. Well, then we'll get started. So we already did the intro, but I wrote it in my paperwork. So, welcome to Legends of the West. We're going to dive into some untold stories of the frontier. It's the greatest figure that I believe, besides Doc Holliday. We're talking about today, Lawman Bass Reeves. His real name is just Bass Reeves. The TV show, if you want to watch it, is Lawman Bass Reeves. He was born in 1838 into slavery, in which he escaped during the Civil War. He was forced to do some of the fighting in the Civil War. He had to help out with the South and all that good stuff. Maybe I should rephrase that. He had to help out with the South. I'm not going to say all that good stuff. This is not edited. You guys are going to hear that.
Don't Google unsafe searching.
Safe search off. Anyway, he escaped and found refuge with some Native American tribes. But the true legend of him began when as one of the first black deputy U.S. Marshals west of the Mississippi. Over his career, he arrested roughly 3,000 outlaws and survived countless shootouts where he himself was hit a few times, stabbed a few times, and captured a few times, oddly enough. He was captured 2 or 3 times from what they knew by people that thought that the slave trade should have kept going. And they knew kind of what he did to his master when he escaped. But the reason that the slave owner used Reeves so much was because growing up, he became like an excellent shot. And he had really good tracking skills. So he was known as a master tracker, great shot, and a man of unshakable integrity. He worked in the Indian Territories, which is now Oklahoma, where like lawlessness, crime, fucking horse thieves and all that, they were just wild. They just ran rampant, did whatever they wanted. They didn't really care about anybody. They just wanted to make their little doubloons, bullions, or whatever you want to call them, coins.
Money. Yeah. He wanted to make money.
Yeah. Yeah. He brought justice without like he didn't care if you were white, black, or Indian. The white people that he arrested, he didn't like beat on them because of what other people that looked like them did. The funny thing was, I found out that I didn't know this from some of the stuff that I read about him. He actually arrested his own son when he found out that his son had committed a murder, which is crazy. You think he'd try to help him? No. Despite his accomplishments, his let's say figure and like importance of that time was kind of overshadowed by a lot of the myths of the Wild West. But he ended up, hold on, I gotta turn my page. He ended up dying January 12th, 1910, at the age of 71. He died from Bright's disease, which is, I don't really think that's a thing anymore.
I've heard
Altogether, huh?
I've heard of that.
Well, that's what took him out. But he married his first wife, which they knew each other from the slave houses. They had 10 children. 10. He had 5 boys, 5 daughters. He did marry another woman in 1900s, Winnie Sumter, and he retired from the federal service in 1907 at the age of 67. Most of his kids, let's see. If you look up his kids, there's 3, for some reason, they knew when they were born. So remember, he had 10 kids. 3 of his kids, if you look up their birth situations, they don't know if they ever died. So he's like, there's no death date for Harriet Reeves, Newland Reeves, or Edgar Reeves. 1876, 1873, 1868. It doesn't show that they ever died. So that's kind of weird. He did have an American Indian as a companion in a lot of the Indian territories to help him speak their languages, and he would always bring stuff to them. He would try to help them learn different things. He never really treated the Indians, from what they said, any different than anybody else, really. He was reportedly, now this is kind of weird because you don't know if it's true or not, but he was involved in a number of shootouts, yet he was never injured. But I read somewhere else that he was shot and stabbed. And then I don't know where they got this direct quote from, but they said Reeves stated that once he had to kill 14 men in self-defense. And at the time of his death, a newspaper reported that the number was actually 20.
That sounds like a South Park episode where they're hunting the animals and he's coming right at me.
When I read that and wrote that down, in my head, it was Cotton Hill. I killed 50 men. That's all it was. It was Cotton Hill. It was Cotton Hill. His 2 guns that he used the most were 2 Colts. They were 45s. And then he had a smaller revolver that he would always carry in like his I guess back then they would be called like watch pockets. It was like a Derringer size. But I mean, I don't really. Most people nowadays don't have watch pockets. People nowadays don't understand what your little lighter pockets for on your fucking pants. That one pocket that's inside the other pocket, it's for like lighters or a knife or change.
Or a pocket watch.
Could be a pocket watch.
I wear a pocket watch from time to time.
Through his martial service and working with his Indian companionship, he learned how to speak Choctaw, Seminole, Cherokee, Cree, and Chickasaw languages, which is pretty impressive.
Hella impressive.
considering that he was a slave to start with, we know that they didn't teach people back then how to read. They didn't teach them how to write. So for him to learn 5 native tribe languages is kind of crazy. Along with him killing 14 men, supposedly maybe 20, he was strong beliefs in Christianity, and he made a promise that he would always share his story and his emancipation from slavery. If Bass, the way that he got out of slavery supposedly was if he beat his slave owner in a cards game, and it was supposedly right at the end of the war where you pretty much knew slavery was about done. But if he beat the owner in the cards game, he was able to go free. And supposedly when he did win, the guy was like, "No, you're not going anywhere." And there was a huge fight, and he fucked the other guy up and then just ran. Trying to think. I tried to shorten this down so it wasn't like crazy long, so we can try to keep him at like 30 minutes. His most popular nickname was the Invincible Marshal. And I found this kind of weird. You know exactly when he died. You know exactly where he died. You know exactly what supposedly killed him. But he has no official gravesite that was like marked. He was just buried in an African-American cemetery in Muskogee, Oklahoma. So you don't actually know what site is his. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Bass Reeves.
So Bright's disease is a historical term for a group of kidney diseases that are now called nephritis. So that's what Bright's disease was. It is no longer a common medical term. But all right, now since Mr. John covered the hero that was Bass Reeves and possibly his 3 still alive kids that might be vampires for all we fucking know, we're going to cover the villain. And for this here, we are going to be covering Robert Leroy Parker, a.k.a. Butch Cassidy. Robert Leroy Parker was born April 13th, 1866 in the Beaver area of the Utah Territory. He was the first of 13 siblings that grew up in the Circleville area of Utah Territory. Not 100% sure. I mean, maybe they were traveling. I'm not sure. But as a teenager, he fled home, and quite frankly, I don't blame him. I mean, mom and dad were busy bees for sure. At 13 kids, that's roughly a couple. Excuse me. So where we were at here, 13 kids, 9 months to have a kid. That's about 13 years old. You hear your mom and dad going at it like that, you're gonna want to just leave, and I don't blame him. Either way, started working on a dairy ranch when he met a cattle thief named Mike Cassidy, who became something of a mentor to him. While in these years, he took an apprenticeship as a butcher, earning the nickname Butcher, which was later shortened to Butch, which is what we're going to call him, obviously, from this point forward, is Butch Cassidy. So Butcher's first criminal offense was as a minor. Rode into town late. The clothier store had closed up. Broke in, took a pair of pants and some pie. He left an IOU, actually, for the store clerk, letting him know that he would pay upon his next visit. However, that shit just doesn't fly in the real world anymore. Apparently, it didn't fly back then either. The clerk pressed charges, but later the jury was just like, "Yeah, we're not doing this. Like, you're good to go, man. Like, you you could pay for it. You just came into town late. So understandable there. Um, First bank robbery, however, and this is where we see the turn of Butch Cassidy, was performed in 1889 for a total of $21,000. So that is like 700,000 in today's money, um, from a bank in Telluride, Colorado. With that money, with the proceeds from that, he purchased a ranch close to the place that he fled after the robbery in Telluride, which is called Robber's Roost. Had a big ranch. A lot of people think that it was for other things, like it's where he'd plan his robberies at, it's where he'd hide stuff, it's where he'd do this, where he'd do that. So because he had cattle, like he had his brand was an E, or I'm sorry, a backwards E, and then a box, and then an E. So like it was pretty much E box E. It was unmistakable for any other brand, and everybody knew it was Butch Cassidy's. However, his ranch didn't do jack shit. Like, didn't do anything. Didn't have a lot of cattle. Like, it had cattle, but people thought that the cattle that were there were stolen, and obviously his brand would go over it. So that's what everyone thought that his ranch was for, like kind of fencing cattle, so to speak, or like holding stolen cattle. And then in 1894, he became romantically involved with Ann Bassett, and for a short time, her sister. But he eventually went back to Ann. Apparently, the sister just couldn't throw it back. Butch was actually placed in jail, and upon his release in 1896, he formed the Wild Bunch, obviously, which he was the leader of. There were several outlaws in that. Like the names were weird. I might do something on like YouTube on them. The bunch actually robbed a bank in Mount Pillier, Idaho, which netted the bunch $7,000, which, I mean, compared to his first robbery at $21,000, $7,000. I don't know if it would have been worth it. I probably would have been disappointed myself. My first time 7, this time, or yeah, first time 21, this time 7. Yeah, I might have been disappointed in that. In 1899, he was being hunted by the Pacific Railway Company, which obviously means that he has upgraded to robbing railways, which, if you knew anything about that stuff, if you know stuff about that, that was big money, because that's how they transported the gold from the gold rush back east, was the railways. That's how they paid people. Like, money was on those trains. So, and not only that, to be able to afford to ride them sons of bitches, you needed to have money. So, anyhow, Pacific Railway was hunting him, and he pleaded for amnesty from the governor of, I believe it was Colorado, I believe. During the talks, silly little Butch robbed another fucking train for the Pacific Railway, and I don't know what the shit he was thinking when he did it. Like, dude, if you're trying to talk with these people to get them not to hunt you, rob another fucking train, dude. Like, don't rob the same company you're talking to for peace. Like, you're dumb. You're dumb, man. You're dumb. In 1901, him and the Sundance Kid. That's right, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The Sundance Kid came into play right after he formed the bunch, I believe, is when he came into play. So, anywho, they decided to skip the country with all the heat coming down on them. They decided to just chalk up the deuces and dip. And that's exactly what they did. They headed to Buenos Aires, Argentina. They bought a little ranch down there, lived a quiet life for quite a while. And then the two silly sons of bitches decided to hold up a bank, as which they were described as two English-speaking bandits. Well, in the fucking country of Argentina, there ain't a lot of English speaking folks at the time in 1901. So ain't gonna be hard to track them the hell down. Anywho, did that for a while, and then in 1908 they robbed a courier that was carrying a payroll for a silver mine in the area. They were spotted 3 days later and surrounded by soldiers, local cops, the mayor, and any other person that would want to fight. And they had a firefight, and that shootout lasted several hours into the night. Officials went in the next day to see that the Sundance Kid had a bullet hole in the front of his head. So obviously he was looking at the gun barrel when he got shot. And Butch Cassidy had one in his temple, i.e., the side of his head. So both were riddled with bullet wounds to the arms and the legs. And the rumor has it that Butch shot Sundance Kid and then shot himself with his last bullet. And that is the tale of Butch Cassidy. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think he was a decent outlaw. I mean, they didn't really say much about people that he killed or anything like that. It was more of just robbing. But I mean, $21,000 for his first bank robbery? Shit. It's insane. Like that right there. Like, and then you buy a ranch.
Especially in the 1900s.
Huh?
Especially in the early 1900s.
Yeah, his first bank robbery was in 1889. That was like $700,000 in today's money.
Did you actually do a conversion on it?
It was the source that I got it from. That's what they said it wasn't in 2024 money.
Oh, okay.
It was like $735,000, I think is what it was the exact number.
Jesus.
All right, everybody. That obviously our end of the show spiel. What?
Mazel tov.
Yeah. Our end of the show spiel. Make sure you hit us with the like, the subscribe, the follow, the rating, and please share us. Like get
comment.
us up. Yes, comment. But
also
share.
Check out the YouTube. Steve is doing. I have besides doing the recording, Steve is doing all of the YouTube work on his own, and I think he's doing a very good job.
Dude, some of them, like, I go through, like, I did one a day. Well, the one that I did, like, I listened to an episode. So obviously I listened to the Sit Down podcast with Jeff Nadu. Love the fucking podcast. And, like, he covers gangsters. So, or, like, he covers organized crime. So I'm listening to the one episode a day, and I just did this episode on our YouTube. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, shit. Did I put that in ours? I'm pretty sure that's in ours. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, okay, all right. Yeah, I think I did good. All right. But, like, mine on the YouTube, this first miniseries is all on hits done by the American Mafia. It's not like a true blown out biography on the gangster. Like, I cover some topics, some interesting stuff about them, and then I do their hit. And, like, I enjoy doing it. I have fun at it. But yeah, definitely check out the YouTube. As you guys can see, everything has changed. The Instagram, the Spotify, the YouTube, everything has changed to the new look with the Dead Men Tell Tales.
There are currently, if you need to binge watch something, there are 12 videos on the YouTube.
Yep. And for those of you that are playlist kind of people, I actually have the playlist going. I just got to get the videos moved over to it. So I am putting in the work on the YouTube.
Also, Hidden Valley Kings is our most popular episode on the YouTube.
I know. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you.
It's questionable. It's a good episode.
I like it, but at the same point in time, like, I'm watching my rearview mirror a lot more because I'm like, man, if that was the episode, I know these motherfuckers are still active. Shit. That's fucked up.
They were the extra subscriber we got last week, and we're like, who was that?
Right, we're all happy about it. They're just stalking my ass. You motherfucker, you fucked up. I'm
Well,
sorry.
like Steve said, we will keep it going for you guys, and hope you guys enjoy it. And we'll see you next week. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes,
See you
yes.
next week.
And until next time, everybody, stay classy, keep it real. Peace.